Greetings, everyone. This story today comes from the subreddit r/infidelity by user throwra2unsure. The title is, Finding Out the Truth About My Wife. Before we get into this, I want to thank everyone for their time in watching this video, and I hope you would like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Now, let's dive right into this. We spent 2 years together in college and got married the fall after we graduated. Spent 2 years exploring our relationship and finally got settled down and was ready to raise a family. She got off birth control and her libido took off, but it took 3 years for us to get pregnant, but we got a beautiful girl finally. After a couple of months, my wife got back on birth control and had a hard time with it. Her doctor switched her meds several times, but she had bad side effects with each one. We talked about it and were unsure if we wanted another child, and since it was easier for me to get a vasectomy reversed later if we decided to have more children, I had the operation. That was 3 years ago, and after coming off birth control my wife has felt better and sex has been worry-free since we can no longer get pregnant. We actually have sex more now than when we were in college. Then 3 weeks ago my wife was late for her period, which isn't that unusual for her. Then I noticed her breasts were a little tender and she started what seemed like signs of morning sickness. Now I know there have been cases of nature reversing vasectomies, so I went to the doctor and had my sperm count checked, and the verdict was I'm still sterile, but I didn't tell my wife. My wife finally went to her doctor and confirmed she was pregnant, and so she had me go to my doctor to get tested. I didn't go right away because I was literally sick from the stress of the situation. I had all sorts of sick scenarios going through my head. In the end I got retested and I took my daughter in and had a DNA test done. I got both test results back today and got violently ill after reading them. Yes, I'm sterile, and no, my daughter isn't mine. When my wife got home I showed her my test and she denied any wrongdoing and said that there was a problem with the test, and I showed her the test from last week and she broke down crying. I finally got it out of her who she had slept with and that it only happened once and the condom must have failed. I made her tell me the story 3 times, and each time I asked her if that was the whole truth and if there was anything else that she needed to tell me because another lie would mean we were through. She said that was the only time and she had never done anything like that before. I told her how much this hurt me and asked her how she could do this to our family and if it was worth it. I asked her if she wanted a divorce and she pleaded with me to forgive her and put this behind us. I said I couldn't raise someone else's child and asked her if she would be willing to terminate the pregnancy in order to stay together. She cried the rest of the night, but when we went to bed she said she would do whatever it took to save our marriage. I never brought up the DNA test. I will contact a lawyer next week to see what my options are about if I have to pay child support on our first child. If she had come clean about the father of our first child I could have swallowed my pride and tried to work to forgive her, but she thought she was in the clear and didn't need to confess to anything else. No telling what I'll never know. Lawyer update. My lawyer is awesome. She had me bring in a bunch of paperwork, bank statements, and my medical and DNA results and had me tell her my story. Her assistant sat in with us and took notes while my lawyer went through my documents. After I finished she asked a few questions and spelled out my options. I live in an at-fault state, which is good and bad. Good as in it gives us leverage, bad as it takes longer and much more expensive. In the case of the first child, if my wife agrees to sign the papers my liability for child support is an easy fix. If she doesn't agree then a court-ordered DNA test and a judgment from the court can remove me without my wife's consent. Either way, I will most likely not have to pay child support. One way is just more expensive than the other. Since my wife has a good job and earns close to what I do, she didn't think the judge would award her any alimony. And all of that plus dividing up property and other things can be negotiated before a judge gets involved. The bad news was due to the holidays they couldn't have the papers ready before Christmas, but definitely would before the end of the year. She advised me to say nothing until she got served. She gave me a list of things to do before and after Christmas before they served my wife. One thing they did point out was since we were actively trying to have a baby there was a possibility that my wife didn't know that the child wasn't mine. My wife has an appointment with her OB tomorrow. Op said, depending on my lawyer's advice, I plan on telling my mom and dad about the situation ASAP before my brother lets it slip. If my wife doesn't tell her family about the affair I will if we go over there for Christmas. I may reveal a copy of the DNA tests then as well. I know from friends who have gone through divorces before that moving out is a bad idea for a legal claim to the house. Again, depends on what legal advice I get tomorrow, but my wife doesn't have anyone nearby that she could move in with, and her moving back home would mean not being able to keep her job. There have been some here and a couple of friends that have said I shouldn't turn my back on her, our daughter, and that it is not her fault. But she has her mom's green eyes and blonde hair, and I know when I look at her it would be like rubbing salt in an open wound, and a healthy relationship with her going forward isn't likely. A few weeks ago I was hurt but kind of numb. Now I can feel the resentment, anger, and maybe even hate starting to fester more and more each day. I think a check-in with my doctor may be in order, and see if he can refer me to a therapist or counselor. OP said. I went by the daycare to pick up the daughter and was hoping to have a word with the AP. As luck would have it, his wife was picking up their son and we were able to have a conversation. I told her that her husband would be relieved that my wife had terminated their pregnancy. She grew quite upset, and I gave her my business card and said my wife was planning on calling you and explaining everything. I got home and told my wife I had scheduled a meeting with a marriage counselor for after the first of the year, which perked her mood up a bit, and she was talking about how happy she was I was making an effort to move past this. I didn't tell her that the session was required by the court because of a divorce with a minor child. Then my phone rang and it was the app's wife. I put it on speaker and sat next to my wife and said it was for her. It didn't start out well and went downhill fast. My wife's story contradicted itself a couple of times, and that was not missed by app's wife. She maintained it was just sex and kind of threw AP under the bus a little towards the end. A lot of name calling by app's wife and crying on both ends of the phone. After she hung up, my wife got mad and asked me why I talked to her. I said her telling his wife about the affair was part of our deal, and I just stumbled on a chance to set that up at the daycare. I fixed myself a drink and came back to the living room to text her away on her phone, and got close enough to see what she was typing before she knew I was there. I said to her if we were going to get past this she would have to go no contact with him and ask to see her phone. She agreed to not contact him again but said her phone was private, and I dropped it. I asked if she had a chance to tell her family about all this yet, and she said no, and I just left it go at that. Supermarket Oak 9538 said, do you have a good connection to her family? Where does she work? Have you ever checked her phone? OP said, yes, even though they live a distance away we still get together for holidays and birthdays. She has worked at her present job for 5 years and I know a few people there, plus we go to their work events and parties together. No, I haven't attempted to check her phone. I have all the evidence I need to make the right decision, and I'm sure I will find things that will just hurt me more. No desire to go there at all. Quote, Batista said, first take care of yourself. Make sure you have a friend or family member to talk to. This is to keep you from bouncing off the walls. I know you've set up a meeting with a lawyer for next week. Might be worth it to see 2 others for the initial free consultation. Then pick the best one. Get tested for STI. Lock up your finances and credit cards. Do you own or rent a home? Does she have family nearby? Op said, did that when I had the DNA test run. Already working on that one. Own, unfortunately. No, they live about 2 hours away. Batista said, possible Christmas timeline. She would do whatever it took to save our marriage. It's going to be a little bit before you see the lawyer and get the separation papers ready. Also, see about the steps to get your name removed from the birth certificate when you speak to the lawyers. Timeline. Completed by December 20th. Have her write a letter explaining her affair with the purpose of showing your families. To show remorse for her actions, as there are consequences to her actions. Have her get an STI test so that you know she hasn't caught something that she could have given you. Include the following words in her letter. I swear to God the following information about my affair is true. That I am rebuilding trust in our marriage and show remorse for my actions. If there are any previous affairs, current other affairs, or any future affairs, that I fully understand that there will be no third chance, that we will divorce, and I accept there will be no relationship between us going forward, as this is my last and only chance. Asterisk. Then get a second DNA test, just to be safe. Have it dated closer to the date you filed the divorce papers. Then when the divorce papers are ready, I would have all your important stuff packed and ready to move. Get a friend to help. Timeline. Before December 25th, unless you want to spend Christmas with her and her family, then leave early in the morning before she gets up. Leave the divorce papers and DNA test on the table. Highlight her letter that says ****. If there are any previous affairs, then call her parents. Tell them that the DNA test came in and you found out that she had cheated before and your daughter is not yours. That they need to come to be with her as your heart has been completely shattered and you need to leave. The reason for the parents is so that someone is there for her so that her child is safe and to be there for her. OP said, I already have an appointment with a lawyer on Monday morning. Her not admitting to the first affair and her daughter not being mine was a bridge too far. I broke down and told my brother about it this morning and he has been a rock for me. I asked him not to tell my parents until I have talked to my lawyer about where I stand and what my rights are. Quote, not ob_live_ious said, wow. I am so sorry. This must be so painful for you. Definitely speak to an attorney. I am not sure if you've thought about whether you still want to be a parent to your daughter. But please put much thought into it, as in order for you to go through the process of not paying child support, you must have your parental rights legally terminated, which shouldn't be much of an issue considering you have DNA evidence that she is not your biological child. But this would mean that your STBXW will have sole parenting rights and she can prevent you from seeing that child ever again. So, if you're on the fence about that, or if you still want to be a father to this child, talk to an attorney and learn your legal options and then really think hard on what you want, because once it's done, there will be no turning back. I wouldn't be surprised if your wife has been carrying on an affair with the same person the whole time and her AP is the father of both children. I am so sorry. This is truly terrible. OP said, she told me the name of her recent affair partner and he wasn't around when the first one was born. Throw RA 504 said, glad you talked to the wife and not the AP. She deserved to know who she is sleeping with and what posse is. With any luck his life gets turned upside down the same as yours. Shame your wife can't see what she is doing to the marriage by acting like she has. Don't be alone after she gets served and get out as soon as you can. Quicker you go no contact with her the better for your sake at the very least. Try and find a support group, there are tons out there, and get some therapy to help speed the healing. This happened because of who she is, it's not a reflection on you. Take time and don't rush to get back out there, give yourself time to heal and find your center before looking for another partner. Do you have an exit plan and a place to stay yet? OP said, my whole family knows the whole picture and my sister plans on being at my house after my wife gets served and has offered to let me stay with her for as long as I need. When my sister was growing up she would go ballistic if I ever even looked at one of her friends, and now she is saying I need to get back out ASAP and has already pitched one of her friends as a first date. My heart goes out to you. OP, it must be devastating to find out that your daughter isn't yours. Your so-called wife has no morals at all. She didn't even just cheat, she passed on a child that wasn't even yours. She had all the chance to admit to cheating on you before and maybe start over with you, but like all cheaters, the only thing they can rely upon is never being honest and upfront with the betrayed spouse. There are two things I hate the most about cheating: husbands or boyfriends who cheat on their wives or girlfriends during their pregnancy, and wives and girlfriends who pass on affair children as the husband or boyfriend's own. That type of behavior is unacceptable. OP did the right thing in gathering all the evidence before confronting the cheater. OP is meticulous and thinks everything through, not letting emotion get in his way of regaining control of his life again. This is the way everyone should act when discovering the cheating. Worry about regaining control of your life and deal with the emotion afterward. I wish OP well.